You're listening to the Superpower Up Podcast with your superpower experts. This is the place where we explore real-life superpowers and give you the tools to unlock your own.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, your superpower expert. And I'm really excited to have with me today just a remarkable man. This guy's given over 1,700 presentations to more than 1 million people since 1974. What I love so much about him is that he's so well founded and practical. I think that to me that's such a welcome addition to a lot of the conversations that people are having now in the spiritual development entrepreneur sectors, because you do hear a lot of like the pie in the sky kind of approaches and do this and these quick, easy steps to be rich and free and all this whatnot. But as we discover is that the secrets are in the doing and the actual taking action and guided action and knowledgeable action. And so those really practical kind of approaches and steps and ways to do things are super crucial to truly build success. And so Jerry Teplitz is a remarkable man. He operates something called Switched On Startup Entrepreneur. I could talk for hours about how remarkable this man is, but today we're going to talk with him about the characteristics of entrepreneur success. So I really suggest that you take some notes. If you truly believe you're here to change the world and that you're here to have an impact, you have to have those practical founded steps and the building underneath of you, or else it's not sustainable. And Jerry is just the man to offer some of that information. So Jerry, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a delight to be here, Tonya.
Oh, very cool. Well, we're going to jump right in and ask you, what are your superpowers?
Well, the way I view my superpowers is I've been doing speaking, training, consulting for many years. And what I view my superpowers is the ability to show people their personal energetic system. That's the system that operates that they need to have in sync, in effect, to be able to succeed with what they want to do. So I'm really giving people experiences of their energetics and what does that mean to them. And then the other part of my superpowers is showing people how they can actually create new neural nets in the brain in minutes to literally get over blocks that they have. And since we're talking about startup entrepreneur, in that process. But I've also done this work with salespeople, with network marketers, with internet marketers, with managers, with advanced entrepreneurs. So I've gone kind of broad brush in terms of affecting and impacting people in their business life.
Wow, you're absolutely speaking our language here. We love things like, I talk a lot about the energy signatures and what we, one of our steps in our process is attuning your individual resonance. And a lot of people are really just completely unaware of not only what they're projecting with their energy signature, but also what they're receiving through, like it's its own antenna. And so I love the stuff that you're talking about. And I think that it is really lacking in a lot of the, either you go to the personal development arena and they kind of just happen upon it with mindset and everything else, or it gets skipped over entirely and goes all, way into the woo-woo kind of energy work kind of components. And so that concept of the personal energetic system, I think, is really a lot of fun. And I think it's like the unknown, like untapped resource that most successful entrepreneurs will give voice to. But I don't see a ton of people really working with entrepreneurs in that arena. So how did you get involved with all that? How did you kind of move into that direction?
How about the stumble effect?
I love it.
Yeah. I'm an attorney originally and wound up getting a Ph.D. in Holistic Health Sciences. And prior to the Holistic Health Sciences, I was living in Chicago, early 70s, hanging around a group of friends that were getting into some really weird stuff back then. And most people don't realize that things like yoga, meditation, those which are now totally accepted and mainstream now, back then were totally weird and off the wall. And that's when I got introduced to it. And being an attorney, I wasn't interested in it. I was scared of it. I didn't want to do anything, but I kept hanging around these friends, and I got peer pressured, and peer pressure is powerful. So one of the things that they pressured me to do was to do yoga, which I actually was going to be doing with a negative attitude. I wanted to prove to them that it didn't work.
I love it.
How'd
that work out for you?
Well, shortly after I started, I noticed lower back pain problems I had most of my life were gone. I had more flexibility than I had ever had as a high school athlete. I got so excited, I wound up studying, becoming a master teacher of Hatha Yoga. And then in 1974, I created a program called How to Relax and Enjoy. And I was speaking at colleges on that. I was showing people how, if they needed to fall asleep, how they could do that using what's called progressive relaxation. I was showing them deep breathing to relax before an exam. I was showing shiatsu, a Japanese pressure technique that showed them how to get rid of headaches, or in college students' situations, hangovers, in 90 seconds. And I was also teaching people how to meditate. I even made because I was not known on college campuses, so to get the kids to come out, I was being booked through the university activity boards, union boards. I offered a relaxation guarantee. If you didn't leave feeling more relaxed, I would pay you $4 for having come to the program, even though the program was free to them. I actually had a director of student activities come up to me at one college and say, "We got a problem." And I said, "Yeah, what is it?" He said, "The whole left side of the audience is here for the money." And I said, "Don't worry about it." Did the program, nobody came up. 180,000 people later, only 4 people had asked for the money. But 179,900 and something else got to experience something that was different for them. So my notion is to give people experience, and that I view as part of my superpower that's immediate. One of the biggest, and I speak in the corporate arena and for business conventions, trade associations, and to entrepreneur groups. And one of the biggest comments I have for folks is, "I was a skeptic and now I'm a believer." And that's within an hour program or an hour and a half program. I get that.
That's fantastic. Well, I think that's impressive overall, but I have to say, with regard to the college crowd, that's extremely impressive. Like $4, that may be like pizza and a beer. Like that's a big deal for them to not take you up on that $4. So color me impressed on that one.
And years ago, $4 was worth a lot more too.
Exactly. Well, very cool. So you've said a lot about what you do when you speak and everything else. Do you work one-on-one with clients? Do you work just in corporate settings where there's more than one employee? Like, how's that? Because you're moving into the startup stuff, right?
Yeah, and so it's not often I do one-on-one. It's what I'm looking to have is a much broader impact. I can do one-on-one, but I tend not to that much, because what I'm doing is I'm speaking for business groups, associations. Like there's a group called Entrepreneurs Organization. There's One Young Presidents Organization. There's groups called Vistage, these are all CEO level groups. And I've been speaking to them for years. And it's more recently that and one of the brain rewiring approaches that I created that I talked about earlier, Tonya, was the first seminar I did was switched on selling. Doesn't teach a single technique. It's actually creating new neuron nets in the brain. So it was difficult in minutes becomes easy. And this is the piece that's most fascinating, by using very simple body movements called brain gyms. So, and these were developed for children and adults with learning disabilities by Dr. Paul Dennison, where you can take D and F graded students and give them the capability of becoming A-level students in a semester just by using movement. When I got involved in that work and saw the power of it, I saw nobody was doing anything in the business arena. So I went up to Dr. Dennison, his wife, Gail, and I said, could I create a course for salespeople? And they said, sure, switched on selling. And that's what was created. You want to hear some fascinating statistics on change, Tonya?
Absolutely.
So we did a study with 695 salespeople. We gave them a pre-seminar questionnaire beginning of the day, a post-seminar questionnaire at the end of the day. We collected the forms back and got them back to them a month later to get over seminar high of placebo effect. You know, you've gone to seminars, you leave real excited. 3 days later, you're back doing what you did before. We wanted to see, did anything actually change? So to give you an example, Tonya, one of the statements was, I'm comfortable asking for the order and closing the sale. You'd agree that that's a pretty important part of the selling process, Tonya?
Absolutely.
So beginning of the seminar day, 52% of these real salespeople were on the negative side. End of the seminar day, only 8% were there. A month later, it was only 6%. Now, on strongly agreeing to that statement of being comfortable asking for the order and closing the sale, beginning of the day, only 16% were there. End of the day jumped up to 35%. A month later, they got better. It was 50%. With the other 43% in agree, we now had switched to 93% to the positive side from a one-day seminar that didn't teach a single technique of selling the entire day.
Beautiful. That's awesome. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think that a lot of this is so crucial in the sense of really providing practical kind of methods, because people, you know, you can hire a coach, you can get some training, you can go to a workshop, you can do all these things. But then as you get away from that, if they're not sustainable, if those techniques aren't sustainable or you can't enact them yourself, it leads to a lot of frustration for business owners. And I know for us at Superpower Experts, we attract a lot of people with solid, sustainable, creative solutions, but they require success. You know, if the business isn't successful, the solutions don't get out there. And so there seems to be this kind of, you know, catch-22 with regard to that, which is why I'm really excited about the stuff that you're offering. So what can we share with people about, you know, I don't want to get into any like specific techniques right before the break, but what can we share with them? Is there something that they can maybe kind of wrap their mind around with regard to the stuff that you're talking about? Because I know part of what we struggle with is disbelief around that it could be that easy. You've had a lot of statistics and everything else. Maybe you have a case study or a way that you handle people's disbelief with regard to that.
Two quick case studies. There's a pest control company in Virginia Beach, Virginia. The president is Kevin Kordick. He heard me speak at Entrepreneurs Organization, his local chapter. Now, this is the middle of the recession. He decides to put half his sales force through the one-day switched on selling seminar. And I tell him to put his mediocre folks in the class. See, like with your entrepreneurs, if they're switched off for parts of being an entrepreneur, they're kind of the mediocre salesperson. They're not able to do what they really need to do to create success. So he's very heavily into tracking statistics. And what Kevin observed is 6 of the 8 people he put in the class immediately jumped above his top tier performers.
Beautiful.
That was August 2009. October, he puts the rest of his sales force through the class. A year later, I said, Kevin, what happened? Now, this was when we first started moving into slow recovery. And Kevin said his profits doubled. This is where other pest control companies were either going out of business or barely holding their own. His profits doubled. On 2 of his high-end product lines, he became the #1 distributor in the country, and one of his guys jumped up over 300%.
That's a pretty impressive case study, Jerry.
Well, there's another piece because of the 2 pieces. Of the 6 that jumped above his top tier, 2 of them thought the seminar was a crock. They thought it was a total waste of time. 4 months after, Kevin sits him down in his office, says, here's your stats before the one day, and then here's your stats since the one day. And even they said it was this one-day seminar. So it's not a belief seminar. You just got to go through the process and you get the rewiring experience. 5 years later, Kevin sold his company to the world's 4th largest pest control company in the world. And they bought him because they wanted to know what was the secret sauce that had his company performing so much better than anybody else in the country, basically. And they paid many multiples more than they normally would for a company. After the purchase, he said one of the elements was 5 years before I put my guys through the switched on selling seminar. I never did another seminar for Kevin. that one-day seminar created that level of success.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. You said that there were 2 studies?
Yeah, the second one is I just did switched on selling for a bank, security bank in Nebraska, and I did it in this January in 20. I did it 2017 in January, and the institute that they belong to for extraordinary banking, were selected the Bank of the Year in 2017, and the president literally said the key element was he put his people through switched on selling.
Well, I think it's really obvious that Jerry knows what he's talking about. And I think if you stick with us after the break, you're going to be in for a real treat. So stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do, Jerry, where can people go to find out more about you?
There are 2 places. One is to my main website, which is just my last name, Teplitz.com, Teplitz.com, or they can go to switchedoonstartupentrepreneur.com, and we're going to talk more about that whole class afterwards, but switchedoonstartupentrepreneur.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, stick with us. We've been talking with Jerry Teplitz about characteristics of entrepreneur success, and we'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Perfect. We're back. We're talking with Jerry Teplitz on the Superpower Up podcast. We're talking about characteristics of entrepreneur success. Jerry, I know you have a treat for our listeners. We've got a lot of folks struggling out there, wanting to be successful, knowing that they're here to have an impact. What can you do for them?
So when we do the Switched On Startup Entrepreneur Seminar, and we cover all the elements of being a startup, from what I call goal setting, and even before you start up, your mind attitude has to be in the right direction. Then you need to find contacts, you need to find people to assist you, you need to find investors, you've got to then present to them, you got to do follow-up with them, you've got to have prosperity as a focus, and you really need to have a mindset that you can be successful and effective as a startup entrepreneur. And that's all the elements that we cover in the Switched On Startup Entrepreneur class. Again, not teaching technique, but switching you on for the process of that. Can I share one quick story, Tonya?
Absolutely.
So we had a group of people in Charlottesville, Virginia, who are working with homeless people to turn them into entrepreneurs. And so they were giving the coursework and all that regular kinds of stuff. They were having meet with people, and it was about a 6-week course that they were doing. And they brought me in to do my Switched On Startup Entrepreneur at the end of their process. So, and we always do research on what's happening with our clients and people who go through the classes. So one of the statements was, I view myself as effective and successful as an entrepreneur, as a startup entrepreneur. Beginning of the seminar day, everybody responded negatively. Which shouldn't be a surprise. These people are all homeless folks, literally. And so end of the seminar day, they were all on the positive side. A month later, actually it was 2 months later before we got them all to do the surveys again, it all held. They were all still on the positive side. So that's the notion of when you're in your startup mode, you've got your mind to battle with and your body to put into sync so you can create the success you really want. And we can actually show people how their body is affecting them if you want. right now.
I think that would be fantastic. Before we jump right into that, I wanted to comment on what you're saying. Where one of the areas, in the counterintelligence firm that we operate, one of the big areas is the cryptocurrency world. And so I keep my kind of finger on the pulse of all of that. And what's so fascinating about what you're talking about is this idea, and this is something that, it's a little bit out there, but you reminded me of it, is this concept of how our mindset will absolutely shape what we're looking at. And so with regard to cryptocurrency and some of the original kind of thoughts around why this was necessary as a decentralized kind of opportunity for folks was exactly what you're talking about. We've inculcated mindsets in such subversive ways that most of us aren't even aware of them. And a lot of times those mindsets are exactly what's working against us. And in the areas of cryptocurrency, we don't even realize how much the financial industry feeds us certain stories or the programs that we have about it, and how it connects to how free or autonomous or powerful we feel with regard to wealth. However, most of the change agents, most of the people we attract, most of the entrepreneurs, the money piece is a catalyst for their own development. And so there's an entwinement of where all of those mindsets connect that create this idea of who we think we are. And what I love about what you're talking about is you start to peel those layers back. You start to see, wow, look at this. It's you don't even know it's working against you. It's basically like, that's the irony of it. And I love what you're talking about. And we've certainly seen solutions similar in the sense that I like that it's not focused on belief. I think that that's really telling. Like, you don't have to believe in this. It's still going to work. And so I really appreciate the fact that you persevered to get to the place where you confidently can put that out there, because I think it's so necessary in the world.
Yeah, it's literally, we start at the brain wiring level. Most seminars you go to ignore that. They don't know what to do about it.
No, they have no idea.
Yeah, so they'll start with beliefs or values, or simply give you a technique to get a result. And the problem is they didn't go to the brain rewiring level to change that level, so that then all the other levels go into sync. That's why the statistics that I was sharing with you, we get so quickly, because we're now putting people in sync. So it means whatever they have learned previously, say as they took a class on entrepreneurism and they learned stuff and they're not doing it, that's in their brain. It's just not wired up to be usable. And so what we're doing is creating the wiring up to that information and cutting the wiring for the part that says, no, I can't do that. And so that's why we can get those kinds of literally immediate results for how people are able to change and transform themselves.
Well, and unfortunately what we're seeing, and I can absolutely speak to this all day long from the due diligence perspective, but we're seeing a lot of folks who really, they can't teach it because they don't know it. They don't embody it. And they're trying to talk themselves into the very process that they're teaching. Or they've utilized it with mediocre success, and now they're peddling that. And it's hugely detrimental. That's why I love hearing about processes, and you run the statistics and you keep track of it, and you've got the case studies and the research to back it up. In my opinion, that's so necessary to cut through kind of, with the advent of the internet and social media, anybody can be a self-proclaimed expert. And then people try to follow that, and they get really frustrated when it doesn't create change and when it doesn't work. And it's one of the things we're super intentional about at Superpower Experts, is making sure that we are walking people through the process and training them along the way. Because I think that mindset piece is so important. My husband and I met teaching at the Counterintelligence Special Agent course, and that was one of the classes that he and I taught. And we utilize concepts like mindset and how the mind works and the eye-brain connection and all these other things, because in the intel world, anything that thwarts the intelligence gathering mission, is a problem, to include everybody's baggage. And so, working through that would be a phenomenal place for you, is the intel arena. So we should talk about that. But it, because there really is, when national security is on the line, that can be a huge hindrance. but anyway, I digress. Obviously, I'm enjoying talking with you, but let's go ahead and give the folks what we've promised them. So the floor is yours. What do we do, Jerry?
So here's what I'd like you to join in, Tonya, as well as the listeners, to show you how the whole, and if you can stand up for the listeners and for you, Tonya, if you can't stand up at some point where you can stand up, take you through the process. I want to show you how your mind is affecting the whole physiology of the body and how important it is to create a change for that. So what you're going to do, have you ever had, Tonya, a negative situation in your job, at work, in teaching, anything like that?
Absolutely. I'm sure I can conjure one up.
Okay. So, and that's what I want the listeners to do. And it could be in your startup mode, if you had a negative situation, or just something that's happened in your business at some point, or your work life that was negative. So what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes in a moment, you'll visualize, and then I'll give you instructions to observe your physical posture. And so you're not opening your eyes, your eyes are just closed, and you're observing, am I slumping, am I upright, am I going side to side, whatever it is fine. Then I'll ask you to observe your breathing, and you'll observe, is it short, shallow, normal, whatever it is fine. Then I'll ask you to observe if you have any pain in your body. Some people do, some don't. And then I'll ask you to observe what's going on in your mind. Do you observe churning or whatever? And so then after we go through the negative, we're going to go through the positive on that. But we'll talk about the negative for a minute or so before we do the positive. So are you ready, Tonya?
I'm ready.
Standing up, eyes closed. So I want everybody now who's doing it, joining in now, think of that negative situation and really intensify that negative thought. And now without opening your eyes, just observe your physical posture. Observe your breathing. Observe if you have any pain in your body and where it is. And observe what's going on in your mind. Okay, now open your eyes. So Tonya, what were you observing with physical posture first? Anything?
What was interesting is I was leaning forward.
So when I do this in programs, people use the word like slumped. A lot of folks will say slumped, and so that fits. And breathing, did you observe anything there?
It was shallower than typical.
And that's actually what a lot of folks say. And then did you observe any pain anywhere? And some people do, some people don't.
No pain.
Which is fine. And did you observe anything going on in the mind around this churning, stuff like that?
Yes, okay. But no. But I'll bring that up here in a second. So not particularly, no.
Okay, but we at least observed, all I'm looking for is people to observe in one area. And so you got two, actually. Mm-hmm. So that's perfectly fine. So let's now go to thinking of a very positive situation for yourself as an entrepreneur, or if you don't have any positives happening, something at a job you had, a situation at work that was very positive. So I want you to focus in on that, Tonya, and people should be standing, eyes closed, and really focus in on that thought now. And observe your physical posture now. Observe your breathing. Observe any pain you feel in your body and where it is. And observe what's going on in your mind. Okay, everybody open your eyes if you want to sit down. Tonya, you may, and everybody else can. So what did you observe this time with physical posture, Tonya?
I just felt very normal, very steady, at peace, like I wasn't leaning forward. It just felt like my normal self.
Okay, a lot of people will say more upright, but and what you're describing sounds like a more upright. Breathing, what did you observe there, Tonya?
Just deep breathing, the more abdominal breathing, and again, just the peace. Oh, I'm okay. Yes, Deep breathing.
Okay.
I don't need to make this more complicated.
Right. Okay. It's real simple. And you didn't have any pain, but what I've observed in doing this with live audiences, I may have 20 people out of an audience of 100, 150 who have pain initially, and maybe only one or two still have pain, which raises the question, is pain in the mind or in the body? And I think it's actually in both. But you can use the mind to change the body. And the last part is what's going on in the mind. And did you observe a difference between the first time and the second time in the mind at all?
No.
Okay. And what a lot of people will say is they had churning at first, and then it was more peaceful or it was clearer. Think words like that. So again, you had the two that you did observe. And again, we're just looking for at least one area. And what you've observed is both of those changed. And I bet you your listeners have the same result as well. What this is saying is your mind is actually affecting your body. What we're doing with the Switched On Startup Entrepreneur streaming online seminar is using body movements then to change the mind, so that that feeling of being upright, of breathing deeper, becomes how you literally are operating as an entrepreneur. So, and then those issue areas that you had are gone.
I was thinking my mind was going off in a million different directions of the applicability of what you're talking about. I think that, it's easy, right? And it's easy to disregard things that are simple. I had, my clients tell me all the time, like, oh, you make it sound so simple. I'm like, it is super simple. It's just not normal, and so the difficult part is normalizing the simplicity of it. And I love how eloquently and, just easygoing, you in an easygoing fashion that you outline this stuff. I think it's powerful. What I do have a question though, with regard to how did you get to the place to where you had confidence? I know you talked about the resistance with yoga and everything else. Like, what was that like for you to move into the space where you really acknowledged that you had a solution to offer to people?
Well, it was from doing all those things in the early 70s, and the experience for me was the most important part of how I was impacted. It was impacting my life, and I was at a point where I had been an attorney originally in the early days of environmental law for the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. And I wound up leaving that. It was kind of like, what am I going to do now? And I got involved with a group that was doing things in colleges. And my job was to market that. And I didn't know anything about marketing, and discovered an organization called National Association for Campus Activities. And so started marketing that group and what we were doing there. And when that group ended about 15 months later, it was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I could have gone back into being an attorney in environmental law, except at that time, the only option from working with a state or federal EPA was to work for polluters defending them. And I just couldn't bring myself to do that. So I said, well, I know this stuff. It really works. Why don't I create a course for college kids, not a course, but a program called How to Relax and Enjoy Being a Student and Passing Your Exams. And that was the beginning. It was really stepping out and trusting that this would work. And it did.
Oh, well, beautiful. Well, I, for one, am really glad that you did. And I honor the work that you do in the world. And I thank you for it. I know we need more of that. And for those of you listening who are struggling with aspects in your business, walk through that exercise. Reach out to Jerry. Jerry, can we remind them again where they can go?
Yeah, the two websites are teplitz.com, Teplitz.com. That's my main site. It's got lots of stuff there, lots of information. And then for Switched On Startup Entrepreneur, they simply go to the website switchedstartupentrepreneur.com, and they can actually sign up for the online course there. We're in pre launch mode. So if they go there, they'll actually see that they'll be able to get a discount on the course, because we're going to be launching it soon, and that discount will go away.
Oh, very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. And to all of you out there who are listening, go out into the world, uncover your superpowers, and change the world. Take care, people.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and discover your superpowers today.